Hey folks, I'm going to the movies. I gotta go watch F1 um, with a fellow former Microsoft engineering manager. He's also a content creator. It's Hassan Habib. Super cool opportunity to be able to get to hang out with him. But more on that later. I'm going to talk about something that I got a question about on LinkedIn, and it was framing from a post that I left, and the post was really around like, as engineers, like you really can't be expected to know everything, and you can't put this kind of pressure on yourself to know everything. And then I gave a bunch of different examples in my career where like I had sort of been put into situations where like I absolutely did not know everything, and kind of like had to, like, part of it's for yourself, like battling imposter syndrome, like, you know, you're put into some new challenge, some new domain, some new type of responsibility, and you're like, I don't have experience doing that. And that's, I mean, part of growing, not just as software engineers, like in any type of role in life. And you kind of get this imposter syndrome about whether or not you're truly capable of it. So that was part of the post. But the other thing is, like, people were taking chances on me, right? So one of the examples I gave was like, when I went to Microsoft, I had only built desktop software. I worked at a digital forensics company for 8 years. I had only built desktop software, right? I've never done, distributed systems at scale. I've run servers and things like that, but certainly not like, hundreds of thousands of servers across the planet kind of thing. So they hired me and they put me as an engineering manager on a deployment team for deploying hundreds of services across hundreds of thousands of machines across the planet. So it was just like, here's a bunch of examples of these types of situations, like sort of as evidence that like that's kind of how my career's gone. And like there's some proof that this is how this kind of stuff can look. So I had someone message me and they said, hey, like, not that I'm not to say that I don't believe you or anything, but especially for juniors, like, how is it that we can get people to build up that trust in us, right? So if I was a junior developer, how can I get someone to give me that kind of trust to go do this kind of thing, right? And they said they kind of followed up with that to say that again, this is them speaking, I think that, the industry doesn't really favor that for junior developers. And they're right. So I'm going to talk through this, but I definitely agree with that. I think that it's very rare that you do have people trusting, junior developers, or people. I'm going to bucket junior developers into people with less experience in general. And you might say, well, I'm a junior developer, but I've been programming for years and years and years. That's totally cool. I just mean, like, you don't have years of professional experience necessarily to back up the work that you've done. Now, you might be able to demonstrate that in other ways, and that is a potential answer to this question, right? Like, okay, you are at your first official career, your first job in your career, sorry, and you're like, okay, this is my first time actually being fully employed like this, but like, I built X, I built Y, I built Z, I've done whatever, and I have this entire track record. You might have built tons of things, deployed tons of things. You might have stuff on the side where you have customers. Like, great. Like, these are examples that you could use for that, but the overwhelming majority of people that are early in their career simply do not have that. So yes, that's one potential answer. I just don't feel like it's going to be a helpful one to kind of talk through. So that's one way. But I think the reality is that there isn't actually really a shortcut here. So the examples that I walk through in my career, I kind of said it in the beginning when I was briefly introducing them in this talk, but like, some of that is me acknowledging imposter syndrome, right? So just to give you an example, when I had graduated university, I had never worked in digital forensics, right? Never got to do that. But what I was able to demonstrate was that I had a really strong C# background. This was a startup. They were like, we get that not a lot of people are going to be software developers and have a digital forensics background. That's cool. Like, we get it. But we need people that are going to be strong C# developers. So I happen to be a very good fit for that reason. Now, in hindsight, like, kind of ridiculous, because was I a good C# developer or as good then compared to now? Like, absolutely not. But I was certainly good enough that we were able to be successful, right? Not that I carried the whole company, but I could be part of that in the beginning to build that momentum. So it worked. I talked in that post, I talked about an internship where they hired me, and I never built like iOS apps before. I had to go build an iPad app, not from scratch, but to contribute to it. I didn't know Objective-C. I don't use Macs to develop. But the whole point is that for some of these smaller companies, they were positioned to say, look, we don't need you to know certain things. We're looking for strengths in other areas. We got you covered on the rest. Right? So at the place where I was doing iOS development, they're like, we don't care that you've never worked in iOS before. Right? I think they were looking at some of the other things, like that I was a self-starter, that I was whatever I was able to demonstrate to them with my resume and prior work experience. They like that, and they were like, you'll learn Objective-C when you're here. It's fine. Right? No worries. With the digital forensics company, we'll teach you digital forensics. We know that not many people know that. Cool, we'll rely on your other skills because that's what we're looking for. So first sort of point here is that you may be able to have a strong set of skills that people are looking for. That's kind of what worked for me in the beginning, was certain unique sets of skills that people were looking for, and they said, we'll cover the rest. Another, like my very first internship, I've told this story before. I worked at this company for 2 different semesters, and the guy who owned the company, when he was hiring me, this interview that he had set up, he said, bring something for show and tell. So I brought this, 2D game I was making, and it was just something that I loved to build. I spent tons of time on it. It was terrible. Like, not a good game, but there was a lot of complex systems that I built into this. And I demoed it to him, and I got the offer. And he said to me, are you surprised that you got the offer? And I told him, like based on how the interview went, like, not really. Like, it seemed to go quite well. So I'm glad it went well, but I don't, based on that interview, I wasn't really surprised. Right? It's not to be cocky. If he was like, in the interviews, like, oh, I don't know, the whole time, then I would be very surprised that I got the offer. But he said it was an internship position that was supposed to only be for students in their second half of university. So like mid-university to like final years. And I was in my very first semester. So he had seen that I was very motivated to go learn, go spend time building stuff. And he was like, great, I have someone that's what I'm looking for. I didn't know Python. I didn't know C. Those are the 2 languages that we used. I hadn't really done any embedded development. That's what I was doing there. I was building embedded software for needleless injectors for farm animals to help medicate them. So these were all scenarios where I was able to demonstrate things that people were interested in, and they could cover the rest. So when people become very, very, very general, trying to cover everything, and they don't really have like something that makes them stand out, makes it pretty challenging. I happen to be very fortunate that I had some things that made me stand out, and I got to align them to positions that I was applying for. Right? It's some of it's luck in terms of timing, who I got to talk to, right? The fact that I applied to certain jobs, very much. But I was also, like, I had done prep work. I had been programming for many years. I'd spent time building things. So So that's part of it. But the next thing that I want to get into here is like, I said it already, but this isn't the kind of stuff that happens overnight. So you may not be in a situation where people are taking risks on you, right? It's competitive right now. Let's take the digital forensics company for as an example. I don't know if they were starting right now. Let's pretend, okay? And the job market's pretty tough. They might say, "Hey, look, we're hiring our first engineers. We put a job position up, and we're getting tons of applicants, tons." Maybe they would say, "We're going to set the bar higher for C# developers." Maybe they would say, "You got to know C#, and we really expect that you understand file systems. We're just setting the bar higher." And they could do that because there's a lot of competition for it. So you, as the person trying to apply, they're not willing to take as much of a risk because they're like, "We have so many applicants, we can be picky." Right? I don't know because I don't have a crystal ball and I can't do the multiverse thing to see how this would have panned out if that company was doing the same thing today. I don't know. But I would imagine that if there was a lot more like competition for people applying, that they could get away with stuff like that. Right? So, like I said, for me, luck, but also preparedness. Lucky because of the timing for it, but I was prepared. So you may very well be in a position where it's like, you want, like, I'm just going to use the digital forensics thing as an example, but like replace it with anything you want. If you're like, "Hey, I'd really want to do that, but I don't have the experience and no one's willing to take a chance on me." Okay, if it's something you really want to do, spend extra time on it, not related to work, land a job somewhere, and build up experience where you can demonstrate accountability in general, right? You want to be able to show on a resume that you were basically assigned tasks, you were able to lead initiatives and take them from start to end without like dropping the ball on it. It's trickier to get that kind of experience when you're more junior, right? But if you can say, like, every project I was given, I was proactive, I was communicating clearly, like you're doing all these things that really show that you're accountable, that's the kind of thing that makes people build trust in you and that they will take more of a chance. If people don't feel like they can trust you, that you're going to be accountable for certain things, they're not going to want to give you stuff that's going to stretch you a little bit. Right? If we think through some of the examples I gave from my own experience, right? A bunch of it was like, "Hey, I'm a self-starter. I do all of this programming on my own outside of work. I love to do it." If you put something new in front of me, I have already demonstrated based on the years of programming that I had done on my own ahead of time, I will go learn those things because I've had to do that already with all these other things. Right? They're like, "Okay, well, embedded programming is going to be new for this guy." Okay, he's already demonstrated that he's gone and learned X, Y, Z, like on his own, self-starter. Cool. Same thing, with Python, with C, with Objective-C and doing iOS development. All these things I was able to demonstrate and kind of build that trust for people. So again, it's going to look different for everyone, but the general advice, and two things I wanted to say here are really that, one, if you have unique skills that stand out, trying to align that to where you're applying to can help tremendously. Like I said, for me, I got lucky with like C# development because I had spent so long, not so long, but so long compared to other people that were like junior. I had years of building in C# already. I had even more years in VB.NET. So I had that to go with me. Like, how many years is that? Like 5, 6. By the time I graduated university, I had 2 full years of internships and more than 7 years of, because I was 14, all high school 4 years. I had 9 years of programming, right? I had 9 years of programming. That was my competitive advantage in 2 years of internships. So you need to go find the thing that's going to help you be competitive. It's going to look different for everyone. That's part one. Part two is being able to kind of say, you know what? People may not be willing to take the risk on me yet. How do I build up experiences where I can demonstrate accountability? And that might mean not taking the exact thing that you're striving for just yet. Using something as a stepping stone where you can build the inertia, build the momentum, demonstrate the accountability. Boom, boom, boom. I'm delivering on these projects. I am demonstrating that I can be someone that's trusted. I'm accountable. You do this. My camera's all over the place. You do this, and then you have more evidence to add to your resume. So that's what I would recommend. I realize it's not like a sexy answer, but that's my advice in this case. Okay, I gotta get off the highway because I don't know exactly where I'm going, but we'll wrap it up there. Thanks so much, folks. Remember, if you have questions that you want answered, leave them below in the comments, or go to codecommute.com and you can submit your question anonymously, and I will answer it for you in a video. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.